So I was sitting in bed the other night and I was messing with AI a little bit, which I've been doing from time to time, just to look at some things that I could do. And one of the things I did was uploaded this picture into AI and said, hey, what does this thing look like painted with white stripes on the hood? And I was really, really surprised what it could do. Just, messing around with it, it's kind of a neat thing that you can do to see what your paint's going to look like. So this is the picture that it came up with. So with AI, you've got to be pretty specific about what you want. So what it ended up doing was painting the hood blue and leaving the fenders and everything else in primer. It did clean up the primer real nice, but it kind of showed me a few things about AI that you've got to be really, really specific about what you ask for. So when you're telling it you want something, you need to tell it exactly what you want. And so I went back at it again and I told AI, hey, what will it look like with the whole car front blue and the stripes white? And so it produced this picture. While a little bit grainy, because anytime you take a picture and resubmit it into AI, it gets real grainy on you. But this was the only picture that I could come up with that was close. It started putting the earlier generation face on the front of the 74, so the turn signals and everything moved around a little bit. But this kind of gave me an idea, so I started going in and saying, okay, I want the stripes wider, I want this, I want that, and the pictures just got grainier and grainier. And so at this point I said, you know what, I'm going to stop here because this kind of gives me a good idea, and I'm going to move on to something else. So I said, what's the side going to look like? And on that note, I didn't go to the side first. I went to the firewall, and this is where it all started, to be real honest with you, not with the front. It's just I had extra pictures, so I'm like, what does it look like with the firewall painted with white stripes on it? And it gave me this kind of dull-looking blue with no sparkle at all, which was kind of annoying. But you'll notice that it smoothed the whole firewall for me, which I thought was kind of interesting. But it kind of gives me an understanding of what I'm doing here with the hood, which is or with the firewall, I'm going to be painting it blue, and I am going to be transitioning the stripes into the firewall and up the cowl underneath the cover so that you can see all of it. So my next step was to go into AI and say that I wanted the stripes to be a little bit wider. So it ended up giving me wider stripes. So I ended up getting my wider stripes, but again, they're still not centered. Once again, it's AI. It really doesn't understand unless you get into really, really detailed specifics. But it is what it is. It's not the human mind. It can't see things the way that you see them, and it doesn't understand the way you tell it to do things. Because to it centered it, but if you'll notice, it centered it on the picture, not on the car. So the only way to get your picture right is to actually take a picture of it where you want things centered on the picture as opposed to centered on the car. It doesn't distinguish between the two of them. So you got to be a little bit more specific. And in this case, I wasn't specific enough. So after you play with it for a while, you kind of go, okay, well, I'm over this. Kind of like I was over the front end. It started getting grainier and grainier and worse. So I'm like, all right, let's start playing with the side. So I had a picture of the car itself, and I said, okay, what does the side of the car look like in blue? And this is what it came up with. Now again, I said I just want to see the car in blue, and you'll notice now the firewall is showing exactly the way it is. There's a little bit of creasing, a little bit of difference, but you can see the blue firewall along with the blue car because this is the actual picture that I loaded of the car in the garage right now. You'll notice that the trunk, the deck lid, is not the same color as the car, but this gives me the idea of, okay, this is what my car is going to look like in that Duplicolor Paint Shop blue, which really gives you a nice idea of what things are going to look like down the road. And so I'm like, okay, let's start playing with this picture. And so my next step was, let's try a different color just to see. And I said, let's see what this thing looks like in white with a black stripe. And this kind of gives you that rendering of white with a black stripe. Now you'll notice the firewall has some added things that weren't there before. That little bump out wasn't there. So I'm not sure where it's getting these things, but it kind of puts stuff in there that really doesn't exist. And that's one of those things, like I said, with AI, it doesn't see things like a normal human. It's trying to determine what you're asking for. So the next thing I did is, okay, let's go back to the blue. So on this picture, I tightened it up a little bit, had it add the fender, as you'll see there's an edge of a fender there, and told it to paint the mirrors blue too because I wanted to see what they look like blue. It's kind of weird what the tape does to it, and then you'll notice on the pillars that the color that the car was originally is still on that pillar, because once again it doesn't see things the way that you do. I could easily take it into a paint program and I could touch those things up and make it fix it right, but this gives me a little bit tighter picture of what the car looks like. You'll also notice that it painted half of the deck lid blue but not the other half, which I kind of thought was kind of weird. But once again, it's AI. It doesn't think like a human. It just kind of thinks on its own. So then I said, okay, let's add some detail. Let's add a stripe down the side. So I told it, give me a stripe down the side, and this is what it came up with. It came up with a picture with one single stripe on the side, and everything else was pretty much the same. It didn't really change much of anything, but you'll notice on the front pillar that little brown mark is gone, and now there's one down there at the bottom. The inside pillar is still the same copper color. It's added a vent wing window, so I'm thinking it's starting to get things from a different era of Nova, and it's just adding things in because it doesn't fully understand. But again, that kind of shows you how AI thinks. And so as I mess with this picture, I'm going, okay, let's, instead of having a single stripe down the side, let's have a double stripe. Because after all, you want to kind of see what things look like when they're a little bit different. So it added the double stripe to it. I kind of like this double stripe, and it adds a little bit of color to the side of the car. You know, everybody's got their different opinions about how everything would look, but with this, at least I can see what it looks like with a thin stripe, with a larger stripe. I could always go up on the upper end of the body line at the top and do my blue stripe or my white stripes up there. But once again, it's one of those things where I'm just playing with AI, trying to figure out, you know, what things look like. And you'll look at, there's a more prominent wing window there, which is totally taking me away from where I want to go. So the next thing I said is, let's see what this car looks like in orange, or more of an orange with a pearlescent color in it. And so this is the picture that it gave me. So now the difference here is it added the two stripes, but it moved them to where the lock is. And you'll notice in my other pictures, there is no lock because the lock's been removed. But once again, it's one of those things where AI is going out there somewhere, getting the picture and putting the things in. I noticed that the door handle showed up on some of the pictures, and that door handle wasn't there before, which I thought was kind of weird. It also changed the interior copper to a brown. So clearly it's getting pictures from somewhere and combining them to give you what you want. But this is definitely, you know, a concept where you've got to learn how to use this in time. One of the other things you'll notice is it changed that pillar to a silver, and the back bumper is now orange. So it did add some color to that back bumper. So the next thing I asked it to do was to take this picture and then do the same thing. Add the blue, add the stripes, leave the bumper blue, mirrors blue, and everything else, so that I can see what this would look like in that particular color. And I have to say that I'm kind of disappointed because, once again, AI doesn't have a clue and grabbed an image off the internet first. So this is what it came up with first. So here we can see it came back with a picture. The front grill's missing the turn signals. The bumper's missing the turn signals. Pretty much everything is completely different, including the rims. The paint is more of a dull blue, but it kind of gives you an idea of what the color will look like with the same color match bumpers. So I told it that's not even the same car, and here's what it came up with. So now it rolled the picture back a little bit. It changed the rims, so the rims match. Of course, the tires don't. Nothing else has really changed on it with the exception of the picture's wider now. But those of us who are Nova purists know darn good and well that that's not the front of a 74. So once again, I've given up on this one, and I'm just going to use it for a learning experience for those of you out there. So I figured let's try something else. Now that we all know that Novas don't have those round taillights, those are 70 Camaro taillights, and that's a 70 Camaro tail panel, along with the bumper being cut and tucked and everything else. So I'm telling it, okay, let's see this in blue with the white stripes on the deck, and leave the white on the back tail panel, and put in the stripes, and let's see what it came up with here. Now, one of the things I did different this time, and it gave me a different color. If you look at that blue, it looks like a lot more metallic like the earlier ones. In the previous pictures, I forgot to tell it blue metallic, and it just gave me blue. But you'll notice that it did, in fact, keep the tail lights. It's kind of funny that it lit one of them up. It kept most of the shape of the back panel with the exception of the gas cap. It's off. But the stripes are there. It does have the white line stripe on the outside, but not on the inside. But it gives you a pretty good idea of what it looks like. So it did a pretty good job here. Now, after AI does something, it'll ask you specific questions. Like in this particular instance, it asked me if I wanted more pearl in the paint, if I wanted wider and narrow stripes, darker, lighter shade of blue, or a version with your hood stripes matched. So I told it I wanted a version with my hood stripes matched. So let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so it came back this time, and I think it mistook the hood for the roof because it added the stripes to the roof, which is fine. I kind of wanted to see what that looked like anyway, but what you'll notice is it moved the license plate to the center of the bumper, and it wasn't there before. It was off on the side because the license plate spot doesn't exist there anymore. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with AI when it comes to designing and or help you come up with colors and that type of thing. But once you get the process started, it's pretty easy to change colors, to add features, to do things. Now, it is not going to be perfect, as I said before. It's just going to give you a really good idea of what things look like, as it does here. So this just kind of gives you an idea how you can use AI to help you develop your car project. So on that note, I'm going to leave you with this last one. I had actually went in and I told it to create an aggressive style of a Nova, and I thought this was kind of funny because it added a Camaro nose to it, with the Nova, kind of Nova accents. But it added an air dam, blacked out the rims and the nose. So this looks kind of cool, and it was designed completely by AI. So again, you can kind of let it think for you and add some features to it. So again, this is an AI version that I pay for. So this costs me a little bit of extra money. I use it for my business. So I don't mind paying the $20 a month that it costs because I really do use it for a lot of things. So anyway, share your thoughts, comments, suggestions. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great one.